My dad traded me for drug money, then he needed a kidney, and I was his only match. I was 11 years old when my father looked at me across a kitchen table covered in empty beer cans and said, "Pack your things. You're going to live with Ray for a while." Ray was his dealer, a man with yellowed teeth and hands that shook unless he'd just gotten high. I'd met him twice before, both times when my dad needed me to wait in the car while they handled business in parking lots behind abandoned buildings. I asked how long a while meant. My dad didn't look at me when he answered. As long as it takes to clear my debt. I was 11. I didn't understand that he was trading me like currency, that Ray had agreed to forgive $3,000 in unpaid drug money in exchange for free labor from a kid who could clean, cook, and keep his mouth shut. I just knew my father was sending me away, and the look in his eyes told me arguing would make things worse. I'm Theo Brennan, and this is the story of how my father sold me to his dealer, and years later ended up in my hospital room begging me to save his life with my kidney. Ray's house smelled like chemicals and rotting food. The windows were covered with aluminum foil and garbage bags. There were 3 other people living there, all men who looked at me with either indifference or something that made my skin crawl. Ray showed me to a basement room with a mattress on the floor and a lock on the outside of the door. "This is yours. You'll clean the house, do the dishes, take out trash. You cook, you're useful, we don't have problems. You cause problems, you don't eat." I nodded, already learning that speaking only made things worse. That first night I heard people coming and going upstairs. Voices raised in argument, then laughter, then silence. I lay on the mattress staring at the ceiling and tried to remember what my mother looked like. She died when I was 6 from an overdose. My memories of her were already fading, replaced by years of my father's decline into the same addiction that killed her. I started working the next morning. Dishes piled in the sink, some with food that had been there so long it was growing mold. The living room was covered in cigarette burns and stains I didn't want to identify. I cleaned for 6 hours before Ray came down and inspected my work. He nodded and threw a granola bar at me. "Good, keep it up." Days blurred together. I'd wake up when I heard movement upstairs, usually around noon. I'd clean whatever mess had been made the night before. Sometimes Ray would give me money to walk to the corner store for cigarettes or instant noodles. Sometimes he'd forget to feed me, and I'd eat whatever I could find. After 2 weeks, I asked Ray when I could go home. He laughed and said, "Your dad owes me another grand. You're here until he pays up, or you're 18, whichever comes first." I was 11. 18 felt impossible, like a distance I couldn't measure. School was still required, so Ray drove me every morning and picked me up every afternoon. I told teachers I lived with my uncle. They didn't ask questions. I was a quiet kid with decent grades who never caused trouble. I blended in. At Ray's house, I learned to be invisible. I figured out which floorboards creaked. I memorized everyone's schedules. I knew when to stay in my basement room and when it was safe to move through the house. Some of Ray's friends scared me more than others. There was a man named Vincent who would stare at me too long and ask Ray why he kept a kid around. Ray would say I was earning his keep, and Vincent would laugh in a way that made my stomach hurt. I started sleeping with my door blocked by the broken dresser in my room. It wouldn't stop someone determined, but it might buy me seconds to wake up. 3 months in, my father showed up. He came to the door looking worse than I remembered, thinner, with sores on his face and that hollow look in his eyes that meant he needed his necks fixed badly. He asked Ray if he could see me. Ray called me upstairs. My father looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. I'd grown in 3 months, gotten taller, lost weight I didn't have to lose. He asked if I was okay. I said yes, because what else could I say? He handed Ray $200 and said it was all he had. Ray counted it and said my dad still owed $800. My father looked at me again, then left without saying goodbye. I went back to my basement room and cried for the first time since arriving. I was at Ray's house for 8 months total. In that time, I learned to cook with whatever ingredients were available. I learned to forge my father's signature on school forms. I learned that some adults would hurt you and others would just watch. The breaking point came on a Saturday in March. Ray was having a party, which meant the house was full of people getting high and drunk. I stayed in my basement room with the dresser against the door. Around midnight, someone tried to open it. Then someone started kicking it. Vincent's voice slurred through the wood, saying Ray wouldn't mind if he borrowed me for a bit. I shoved my entire body against the dresser. The door cracked but held. Vincent kept kicking and laughing. Then I heard Ray's voice, angry, telling Vincent to back off. "Kid's off limits. He works for me, not for you." Vincent argued, but eventually left. Ray didn't check on me. The next morning, I waited until everyone was asleep or gone. Then I took $40 from Ray's wallet, packed my school backpack with the few clothes I had, and wanted to ran, but full story is linked below or on my channel.